Welcome to another UCL Fantasy video. Today we're talking about the best Limitless team ahead of Matchday 5, and this is recorded very early on in the week. I will be away later on and there will be no deadline stream most likely for Matchday 5, but everything will resume as normal for Matchday 6. So there could be some bits of information that are out of date, so bear that in mind when watching this video, but all the ranks on the left hand side are updated and you can see how I did in Matchday 4 in my team selection video, and also be sure to check out the best wildcard team. Those videos will still be out on this channel. The same goes for some game week 12 content as well, so be sure to tune in for all of that, and also game week 13. Let's get this video to over 300 likes and let's also push on towards 16,000 subscribers. We literally only have around 100 left at the time of this recording, so let's keep on pushing, and thank you for your support. And without further ado, let's get straight into this video. I tend to go with the Real Madrid goalkeeper, whether it's Lunin or Thibaut Courtois, but you have more confidence in a clean sheet when Courtois is between the sticks. I would only have a few concerns. So he is red flagged at the moment, but he should be fine ahead of the weekend game against Sevilla, and you've also got the Champions League game a few days after that. Maybe this game coming up for Real Madrid against Elche will be a bit too soon for Courtois, but Ancelotti seems quite positive despite him not making the cut for El Clasico, despite him being positive beforehand as well. But I would expect Courtois to be available from Matchday 5 onwards. The only concern is that even if he's fully fit, Real Madrid have already qualified, so will Lunin actually play in the Champions League with Courtois just being rested and readied for the league until the Champions League starts to liven up in the knockout stages? That's something I would think about. And Mignolet is the second highest scoring goalkeeper in the game so far this season, but he is facing number one in Diego Costa, who has gotten most of his returns in the last two matches, which included saving 2 penalties. So I think his 15 and 16 pointers are a bit unsustainable. Mignolet has been very consistent, and he also hasn't conceded a goal so far this season in the Champions League, but they have already qualified Club Brugge, so maybe they will ease off a little bit. So there are concerns about the goalkeepers. Let me know if you have any other suggestions. I think you can go for either Mignolet or Diego Costa. Any one of them is fine, to be fair, and they are facing each other, so it just depends on who you favour in that matchup. There would only be two concerns with this defence, and that will be Carvajal, because as I said earlier, Real Madrid have already qualified. They could play Vasquez in that position, so he would be a little bit of a doubt. And the other one is Ben Chilwell, who has been rotated heavily over the last year or so, especially this season. He just came back from a long-term injury, of course, and I would be very concerned because Chelsea have 2 games coming up this week before the Champions League game, and even with the likes of Mason Mount, who is the only Chelsea player to not be rotated so far under Graham Potter, I would even be concerned with him starting all 3 of these games against Brentford, Man United and Salzburg, let alone Chilwell, who will probably play 1, maybe at most 2 of these next 3 games. So if Chilwell plays the next 2 Premier League games, I would actually be very doubtful about him starting against Salzburg. So check the lineups beforehand, and then you can start to have a more informed decision in terms of who will start for the Chelsea game next week in the Champions League. As for the rest, though, Joao Cancelo will start. He's up against Dortmund, and I would have a lot of confidence in him, and they can secure Champions League qualification to the knockout stages. Di Lorenzo and Napoli have looked absolutely fantastic so far, and that Rangers game is one to target, and you can go for 2, and to be honest, I would go for 3 Napoli players, even on a Limitless and on the wild card, whatever chip you play. I think triple Napoli this week could be very beneficial. And then the other defender is Ivan Perisic. I would expect him to start against Sporting, and if anything, I would expect a possible benching in the Premier League, whether it's against Man United or Newcastle. Let me know your thoughts on this defence. I think it's very solid overall. Just a few doubts about Carvajal and Chilwell and whether both of them will start. We have a bit of a different looking midfield this week, and once again, it's because of that Napoli fixture against Rangers. So I have gone for Kvaratskhelia, who has been incredible in the last 2 matches, and in Serie A, he has the most goal contributions of any player. So if you were to go for any Napoli player, I would go for Kvaratskhelia, even if you're on a Limitless and he only costs under 6 million. I still would go for him. He's by far the best option at that price and below, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. I have a really good feeling about him this week. The same goes for other Napoli midfielders and attackers that we'll get onto very shortly. Leroy Sané speaks for himself. He is facing Barcelona away, but I still have a high confidence in his returns. Of course, you might not be as confident, and that's fair enough. You could go for a few other players in that position, such as Heung-min Son, or maybe go for Raheem Sterling. There's quite a few options you could go to, but I still back Sané so much, and I think the fixture is still pretty good. Barcelona have been struggling, despite maybe being very unlucky against Inter Milan and Real Madrid, especially in terms of refereeing decisions, but I still think Bayern Munich can score a few goals there, and Leroy Sané could be heavily involved. Kevin De Bruyne away to Dortmund. It's not an easy game, but his quality is just probably the best of any midfielder in the world, and I would go for him in UCL Fantasy. He is very consistent with the assists, and I would expect a bit more from him in terms of goals scored like he did last season, but then you've got Erling Haaland hogging all the big chances. But I have to say, De Bruyne would still be in my Limitless team if I were playing the chip this week. And Salah is finally in form. He scored a hat-trick against Rangers in 6 minutes, which is a Champions League record. Despite the poor opposition, it's still very impressive. And he also followed that up with a goal against Manchester City. A lot of class in that goal, turning João Cancelo. And Salah is playing down the middle, which is very intriguing. I've talked about him in all of my recent Limitless team videos, and people were quite, doubtful about it. The same goes for Heung-min Son, but both of them showed their ability in Matchday 4, and I could expect more of the same going into Matchday 5. And then the final midfielder is Vinicius Jr., but once again, will he start? Could it be Rodrigo again on the left-hand side with Vinicius being rested? They've got the World Cup, of course. He's going to be very integral to Brazil, and also some crucial La Liga games because it's still neck and neck between Real Madrid and Barcelona for the league title. So that's another concern maybe with this Limitless team. But assuming that he's going to start and we have some confidence going into the match day and the deadline, I would go for Vinicius Jr. and the other Real Madrid players that you can see in this team. Despite only scoring one Serie A goal this season, Raspadori has been incredible in the Champions League. He's got 4 goals and 1 assist in 4 Champions League matches, and he faces Rangers next, which for me is a fixture to target, and I would go for triple Napoli in this match day. Let me know if you disagree. Of course, we've got some big names missing out like Lewandowski, but he's facing Bayern Munich, and even though he can score in that game, I think Raspadori's ceiling is even higher. Erling Haaland speaks for himself. I know he blanked against Liverpool, but I think he'll get better supply against his former club, and he will cause some damage. I don't see a huge ceiling for Erling Haaland, admittedly, but I still think he's a reliable captain and he can get you that return, and it's more likely than not that he's going to produce something. And then Mbappe, who is a fantastic option for the captaincy on the first day against Maccabi Haifa, who have been fairly decent actually this season, but I would still expect Mbappe to get a goal and perhaps another man of the match award, and he arguably has the highest ceiling of any of the players discussed in this video. But once again, you can't underestimate Maccabi Haifa, and this is a very solid team overall in my opinion, with a few different picks compared to the usual Limitless teams, and that's mainly because Napoli have such a fantastic game against Rangers, which I think we really need to target no matter what chip we're using this week. Let me know your thoughts and if there's anything you would change. And now let's talk about the captaincy. Just like we did with the best wildcard team video, I'm providing a quick update on Leroy Sané. He is going to be out indefinitely with a thigh injury, and he probably will miss not only matchday 5 but also matchday 6, and he could be out for up to 3 weeks or potentially even more. So who do you replace him with on the Limitless? I probably would look towards Heung-min Son, but if you have any other ideas, then be sure to let me know. You could maybe consider a Chelsea asset like Raheem Sterling or Mason Mount, and I would favour Mount at this moment in time. And you've also got a few others like Phil Foden if you decide to maybe cut one of your other City players instead, but I probably would stick to these 3, Haaland, De Bruyne and Cancelo. Maybe you could go for a like-for-like replacement with Mane or Musiala to face Barcelona. I think that could still be a very good pick. And you've got a few others that will go under the radar like Goretzka, Okafor and many others. So be sure to let me know your thoughts in terms of the best Leroy Sané replacements on the Limitless, but I would go for Heung-min Son, who has looked better in recent games. He's still not reached the heights of last season, but he looked very impressive against Frankfurt. He was man of the match in that game in matchday 4, and he also has been putting in some decent performances in the Premier League. Let's see how he does against Man United later on, and I still think this squad should do a very good job for you. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to over 300 likes, and let's also push on towards 16,000 subscribers. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and also become a patron or a channel member. The links are in the description below. The same goes for the FPL League, as well as the UCL Fantasy League and the Discord server. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for matchday 5 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.